The political figure involved in the peace process at the moment is US President Donald Trump. And I will say so in my sense, and it is my experience of these 10 whole years, because you must know that I count Russian aggression against Ukraine not from 2022, from the time of full-scale aggression, but from 2014, when Russia first invaded Ukraine and has occupied Crimea since then. And since then, it has actually also begun the occupation of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions. Then, I remind you, at the European level, something called the Normandy format was created. We had the Minsk agreements, and frankly, all of that proved completely ineffective. And it turned out that Vladimir Putin, who, I remind you once again, is not just a politician, but first and foremost is a former KGB officer, is a former officer of the Russian Soviet intelligence service, and therefore a man who has special skills and is trained for sowing disinformation, misleading, recruiting, and so on and so forth. He is, in fact, ruthless in his methods, as Russian Soviet intelligence officers were taught to be. Simply put, he fooled Europe and European leaders, deceived them, lied to them. The Minsk agreements led to nothing. The Normandy format has been a failure, and we've seen attempts by European leaders to talk to Vladimir Putin in the form of ridiculing them with phone calls that yielded nothing, or sitting on two sides of a table 10 meters long. Therefore, let's face it, looking at today, if anyone is able to force Russia and Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine, it is only a superpower that is able to grab Russia by the throat. Grabbing Russia by the throat can only be done by someone who does not have economic interests with Russia, who even in economic terms, especially in strategic areas, is a competitor of Russia. Such a competitor of Russia, when it comes to energy, certainly is the United States, which is a big exporter of LNG, and therefore certainly in terms of influencing the European market. The United States is a competitor of Russia, because one of the reasons for the war in Ukraine is certainly an attempt by Russia to dominate Europe in terms of gas, which has taken the form of, for example, the construction of Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Once already, President Donald Trump stopped the construction of Nord Stream 2. Recall 2020 and US sanctions on companies building Nord Stream 2. It was Donald Trump who imposed these sanctions, who blocked this construction. In contrast, European countries and leaders of European countries took part in this construction. They attended the opening of Nord Stream 1, believing at the time that this was a great energy future for Europe. Well, in fact, we, the political leaders in Poland, have been saying from the very beginning that our experience clearly shows that this is an attempt at Russian domination of the European market, and that Gazprom is not any normal company, as Western European leaders try to perceive it, but is simply an energy arm of Russia. And this is how Gazprom and what Gazprom does must be viewed. Well, it turned out that we were right about that, whereas today we really only have the United States, a superpower, the world's largest military nuclear power, as the one who is also able, through economic competition and through the ability to exert all sorts of economic influence and control the world economic market, can force President Putin to simply stop his aggression against Ukraine. And I hope this will happen, because in Poland, we care immensely that the war in Ukraine will end. We care enormously that Ukraine continues as an independent and sovereign state, But above all, we care enormously that this war ends in a lasting and secure peace, a lasting and permanent one, that is, one that will result in Russia not attacking anyone again.